Ever scrolled through like your feed, and just seen an image that just kind of stops you in your tracks? Like those soft glowing colors, those crazy detailed worlds, and characters with eyes that just draw you in.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's probably AI trying to do its best Ghibli impression.
Right.
But let's be real here. The real deal, the actual magic, is in the human story behind Studio Ghibli itself.
Couldn't agree more.
So today, we're not messing around with algorithms. We are diving headfirst into the heart of this incredible animation powerhouse. We'll find out where those dreams came from, the minds behind them, the films that have captured everyone's imaginations, and the lasting impact Ghibli has had, not just on animation, but on, well, everything. Consider this your backstage pass to a world of wonder, full of surprises you won't find just by typing in a prompt.
It really is an amazing journey. And, you shared this fantastic report with us, Studio Ghibli, viral video report, and it's just overflowing with incredible details. It's like a treasure trove of like the studio's origin story, the creative geniuses behind it, and a deep dive into their films. We're going to unpack all the good stuff for you, the visionaries, the techniques, the themes, even some juicy behind-the-scenes stories.
Awesome.
Our mission is to paint a rich, vibrant picture of what makes Studio Ghibli so unique and so universally loved.
Perfect. So first things first, let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. The name Ghibli. Such a cool name, right?
Yeah.
It sounds almost magical. But the story behind it, it's as fascinating as the films themselves. So it was chosen by Hayao Miyazaki, and it means, wait for it, a hot desert wind in Italian.
That's right. But it wasn't just a random cool-sounding name, was it?
No.
Miyazaki saw the studio as this new wind that would breathe life into the anime industry. A fresh, high-quality approach, blowing away the cobwebs, you could say. It's a pretty bold statement built right into their name.
And here's a little fun fact that speaks to Miyazaki's personality. The name Ghibli also comes from an Italian aircraft, the Caproni K-29 Ghibli. So right from the get-go, you see this blend of artistic ambition and Miyazaki's love for aviation taking off.
I love that. And that love for flight, it definitely shines through in a lot of their work, right?
Absolutely.
Now, to really understand how this new wind started blowing, we need to talk about the three amazing individuals who made Studio Ghibli happen: Hayao Miyazaki, Isao Takahata, and Toshio Suzuki. Officially, Ghibli was born on June 15, 1985, but the seed was planted a year earlier with the success of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Ah, Nausicaa. That film is like a pre-Ghibli movie almost.
Right.
It was directed by Miyazaki, produced by Takahata, and then you have Suzuki who brought them together with Takuma Shoten, the publisher who had their back on the project. It's crazy how one film can snowball into something much, much bigger.
Totally. And they weren't exactly starting from nothing either. They took over the assets of Topcraft, the studio behind Nausicaa. So they had like a foundation to build on. But the real magic was in the fusion of those three talents.
Right.
You had Miyazaki, the visionary overflowing with imaginative worlds and characters, Takahata, the meticulous director with a knack for raw emotion and nuanced storytelling, and Suzuki, the savvy producer with the business smarts to make it all happen. A real dream team, right?
For sure. And what's even more amazing is that they weren't driven by money or trends. The report highlights this dedication to making timeless, hand-drawn animation with real artistic integrity. It's like they were saying, this is art and we're doing it our way.
Exactly. Miyazaki wanted to blow a new wind through the anime industry, and he meant it. They aimed to make films that would last, putting craftsmanship and storytelling before profits. And that shines through in every Ghibli film, a commitment to quality that you just don't see everywhere.
All right, we've got the origin story, the players, the vision. Let's zoom in on those two creative giants at the heart of it all, Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. Now, even though they shared this goal of amazing animation, their backgrounds, their styles, they were pretty different.
Totally different paths. It's like two master chefs using different ingredients to create equally amazing dishes.
Bro.
Miyazaki, born in Tokyo in 1941, started his animation journey at Toei Duga back in 1963. He was a standout from the start, amazing at drawing, always bursting with creative ideas.
And he hopped around different studios, honing his craft before directing Future Boy Conan in 1978, which was a TV series, right?
Oh, that's right.
And in his first feature film, Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, in 1979.
Exactly.
Oh, Lupin III is such a classic.
Yeah.
Full of action and humor, so stylish. Miyazaki definitely had a knack for visually exciting stories. But it was Nausicaa that allowed him to really dive into those more complex, deeper themes that became synonymous with Ghibli.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And remember, Nausicaa started as Miyazaki's own manga series, so he already had this complete world built up in his mind. He wasn't just adapting someone else's story, he was bringing his own vision to life from page to screen.
Wow, that's impressive.
And his experience in all those different roles in the animation industry gave him this incredible, well-rounded understanding of filmmaking.
Now, let's talk about Isao Takahata. He was born in 1935, and his path to animation was a bit more unexpected. He studied French literature at Tokyo University.
Yeah, can you imagine? Talk about a plot twist.
Right, from analyzing words to creating animated worlds, that's quite a leap.
It is. He actually joined Toei Doga a few years before Miyazaki in 1959. His first film as a director was The Great Adventure of Horace, Prince of the Sun, in 1968. And this is super important because that's where his collaboration with Miyazaki began. Miyazaki worked as a key animator on that film.
So their creative paths crossed early on, even before Ghibli was even a thought. And they continued to work together on some seriously beloved projects before Ghibli, like Lupin the Third again, Heidi, Girl of the Alps, and Anne of Green Gables. It's like they were already in sync, figuring each other out, building this shared creative language.
Yeah, like a warm-up for the main event.
Right. So Miyazaki was all about those big, sweeping fantasy adventures. But Takahata was more grounded, focused on real human emotions and experiences. Like his films, Grave of the Fireflies, for instance, and Only Yesterday, are known for their realistic, very nuanced approach to storytelling. They often drew from folk tales, history, existing manga, even children's literature, but always with that emphasis on genuine emotion.
Absolutely. And here's another interesting thing about Takahata. He wasn't actually an animator himself. He relied on his team, his collaborators, to bring his vision to life. It shows just how good he was at communicating, inspiring, and bringing out the best in others.
And his style added a whole new dimension to Ghibli's films, didn't it?
Absolutely.
That focus on everyday life, the beauty in the ordinary, it really enriched their storytelling. And some say that Takahata even influenced Miyazaki to explore themes of social responsibility in his fantastical worlds. They really pushed each other creatively in a good way.
They did. And the films they've given us, wow, I mean, the report is right. Ghibli films have this universal appeal.
Yeah.
They speak to people of all ages, all cultures. They touch on something deep inside us.
And even though Nausicaa wasn't officially a Ghibli film, it set the stage right.
It did.
Directed by Miyazaki, produced by Takahata, it had all the elements.
Yeah.
The compelling story, those deeper themes, and of course the stunning animation. It was like a preview of what was to come.
Absolutely. And then in 1986, we got Castle in the Sky, the very first official Studio Ghibli release. And bam, pure Miyazaki magic, adventure, wonder, and those subtle environmental messages woven into the story.
Oh, and then 1988. What a year.
What a year.
We got my neighbor Totoro, and come on, Totoro's more than just a character. He's like the cuddly mascot of Ghibli, recognized everywhere. And then at the same time, Takahata gives us Grave of the Fireflies, a powerful, heartbreaking story about loss and resilience during wartime. Two completely different masterpieces in the same year. It just shows how versatile they were.
Exactly. And then in 1989, Kiki's Delivery Service, another Miyazaki gem.
Oh, I love that one.
That heartwarming coming-of-age story about a young witch finding her way just makes you feel good, And then the 90s kept rolling with Takahata's Only Yesterday, which is so introspective, and Miyazaki's Porco Rosso, this quirky adventure with a flying pig. But Princess Mononoke in 1997, that's when Ghibli really hit the global scene.
Yeah, Princess Mononoke was huge. That epic scale, those complex themes of environmentalism, the conflict between nature and humanity, it spoke to so many people around the world. It felt like Ghibli was finally getting the recognition it deserved on an international level.
It did. And then, boom, the new millennium arrives. And in 2001, Spirited Away blows everyone away. It didn't just break box office records in Japan. It won an Oscar for Best Animated Feature.
Whoa.
The first and still the only non-English animated film to do so. It was a huge deal, putting Ghibli on the map of cinematic history forever.
That Oscar win was massive.
Mm-hmm.
The world was finally waking up to how incredible Ghibli was.
Yeah.
And they kept the momentum going with Howl's Moving Castle in 2004.
Yeah.
Another visual stunner with deep themes, and he got an Oscar nomination too.
It did, and the hits just kept coming. Ponyo with its adorable, whimsical story, Arrietty, this beautifully adapted version of The Borrowers, Miyazaki's The Wind Rises, which is super personal and reflective, and Takahata's visually stunning The Tale of the Princess Kaguya, which also snagged an Oscar nomination.
They were on a roll.
They were. And the table you have there with all the films, release dates, directors, box office numbers, awards, it really shows how consistently amazing and successful they've been. It's an incredible body of work.
It truly is. And you know, what makes these films so special beyond the stories themselves is their animation style. It's so distinct, so recognizable. In a world where everything is computer-generated, their commitment to hand-drawn animation is almost radical.
It's like their superpower, right?
It is.
And it's so intentional. Miyazaki has this quote, "Hand drawing on paper is the fundamental of animation." That's Ghibli's core belief. It's that human touch, that painstaking care that makes their films feel so warm, so timeless, so artistic.
Yeah. And visually, you can just tell a Ghibli film instantly. Those soft colors, those muted palettes, it's like stepping into a painting.
Exactly. And the detail in the backgrounds, they're not just backdrops, they're fully realized worlds, incredibly detailed and immersive. You could pause any frame and get lost in the visuals.
And their characters, they have this charm about them, especially their eyes, those big, expressive, almost soulful eyes. They make the characters feel so relatable, so human, even when they're fantastical creatures or spirits.
Absolutely. And even when things get magical, there's always this grounding in reality, a believability. As Miyazaki said, even when depicting fictional worlds, there has to be a certain realism at its core. That's why the magic feels so believable, so powerful.
We have to mention Michio Yasuda, Ghibli's color designer.
Yeah.
She was responsible for those iconic color palettes, for setting the mood of the films. It's amazing how color can actually tell a story.
She was a master of her craft. She understood the power of color to convey emotions, to enhance the narrative. It's another subtle layer of the Ghibli magic.
And while they're famous for hand-drawn animation, they're not against using CGI, are they?
Right.
In films like Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away, they use it really strategically to create effects that would be tough to do by hand.
Exactly. It's about using technology to enhance the story, not to replace their style. And remember, they did make one fully computer-animated film, My Neighbors the Yamadas.
Oh, that's right.
But they ultimately went back to their hand-drawn roots.
That dedication to traditional methods in our digital world, it's a big part of what makes them stand out. You can feel the artistry, the love that goes into every frame. It's a unique experience.
It is, but Ghibli films aren't just pretty pictures, right?
Oh,
They're full of meaning.
Yeah.
They explore the human experience, our connection to nature, everything.
Absolutely. Environmentalism is a huge theme in their films. You see it in Princess Mononoke, Nausicaa, even in Ponyo.
Right.
They show the consequences of our actions, but they also offer hope for harmony.
And they're very anti-war, which makes sense considering Miyazaki's childhood during World War II.
Great.
Grave of the Fireflies, Howl's Moving Castle, even Nausicaa. They all have that message about the horrors of war and the importance of peace.
And they explore childhood so beautifully, too.
They do.
My Neighbor Totoro, Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, they capture the magic of imagination, the challenges of growing up. They really understand the world through a child's eyes.
They do. And don't forget their strong female characters.
Yeah.
San from Princess Mononoke, Chihiro from Spirited Away, Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. They're not damsels in distress. They drive the story. They're smart. They're brave. It's so refreshing to see that.
Absolutely. And they also explore this tension between tradition and modernity, how Japanese culture navigates the changing world. And throughout it all, there's this message of kindness, of compassion, of human connection.
Exactly. These themes aren't accidental. They're deliberate. It's part of Ghibli's philosophy, and it's what gives their films that lasting impact.
Now let's peek behind the curtain and see how they actually make these films. The report gives us some pretty interesting insights into Studio Ghibli's creative process.
Miyazaki's way of working is fascinating.
I know.
He starts with storyboards, super detailed ones, and sometimes he doesn't even have a full script. He figures things out as he goes, letting the visuals guide the story. It must be both challenging and incredibly freeing for his team.
It's like organized chaos.
Yes.
And the amount of time and effort that goes into each film is unbelievable. Like that story about a 4-second crowd scene in The Wind Rises, taking over a year to animate. That's insane.
It shows you how dedicated they are to quality, and Miyazaki is very hands-on, overseeing everything, even drawing keyframes himself. He hand-drew every single wave in Ponyo. It's like he pours his heart and soul into every detail.
And it's so cool to see how real life inspires their films.
Yeah.
Like Chihiro from Spirited Away was based on a friend's daughter, and the bathhouse was inspired by Ghibli's own office. It adds this personal touch to the fantasy.
And remember the story of My Neighbor Totoro?
Yeah.
Financiers weren't sure about it, so they had to release it as a double feature with Grave of the Fireflies just to get funding. And the name Totoro actually came from a little girl mispronouncing the word Toro, which means troll in Japanese.
That's so cute. And then there's their famous no-cuts policy for international releases. The story about Toshio Suzuki sending a katana to Harvey Weinstein with a note saying no cuts regarding Princess Mononoke. That's legendary.
It shows you how fiercely they protect their artistic vision. They want audiences worldwide to see their films as they intended them to be seen. And the Ghibli Museum in Tokyo, designed by Miyazaki, it's like a dream come true for fans.
It's on my bucket list.
It gives you a look behind the scenes, plus they show exclusive short films you can't see anywhere else.
And there are all these little fun facts that make you love Ghibli even more. Like the Morse code message hidden in Castle in the Sky, the on-site daycare center for employees, even the bus in Kiki's delivery service being named Studio Ghibli. It makes you feel like they're a family, not just a company.
It does. It feels very warm and personal, but it hasn't all been sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
The report mentions some controversies, some criticisms, some tough times they've faced.
Yeah, like that early U.S. release of Nausicaa, where it was edited and retitled without their permission. It's no wonder they're so strict about the no-cuts policy now.
Totally. And Miyazaki's criticism of AI art, calling it an insult to life, has really sparked debate. He's a strong advocate for human creativity.
And even a film like Grave of the Fireflies, as powerful as it is, has different interpretations. Some see it as an anti-war film, others as a story about personal failure. It shows how layered and nuanced Takahata's work was.
Absolutely. And even The Wind Rises, which is generally loved, got some criticism for how it portrayed the designer of a fighter plane. It shows how art and history can be tricky to navigate.
And some people haven't been happy with the English dubbing of some films, although Disney has done a pretty good job overall.
They have. And of course, finding people to carry on the legacy of Miyazaki and Takahata, that's a huge challenge. Remember when they briefly shut down the studio's production arm back in 2014?
Yeah, that was scary.
It had everyone worried. But thankfully, Miyazaki came back, proving that Ghibli's spirit is still strong.
And despite the bumps along the way, their impact on the world is undeniable. They've made anime a global phenomenon, breaking down cultural barriers and introducing this art form to so many people.
It's incredible. They've inspired countless artists, filmmakers, and animators, not just in Japan, but all over the world. People like John Lasseter from Pixar openly say that Miyazaki is a huge inspiration. You can see Ghibli's influence everywhere.
And that Spirited Away Oscar win was a game changer. The first non-English animated film to win Best Animated Feature. It proved that animation from other cultures could be just as powerful and moving.
Absolutely. And their films are still so popular, still so relevant. Their characters and stories connect with people of all ages, all backgrounds. Even AI is trying to copy their style. That's how influential they are.
Yeah, and the Ghibli Museum and the Ghibli Park are amazing ways for fans to experience their world firsthand. And then there's the Honorary Palme d'Or they got at Cannes. It's the highest recognition of their contribution to cinema.
It is.
So from a small studio in 1985 to global icons, it's been an incredible journey.
It has. And their success comes down to a few key things. Their love for hand-drawn animation, their talent for storytelling, and their exploration of these universal themes that we all connect with.
Their legacy is massive. They've not just popularized anime, they've inspired countless artists, touched millions of lives, and changed the way we look at animation.
So, given how influential Studio Ghibli is, even in our tech-obsessed world, what do you think it is about their magic that makes it so timeless, so universally appealing?
It's a great question.
And how can we, us apply that magic to our own creative endeavors, regardless of what tools we use? It's something to think about.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Studio Ghibli. We hope you enjoyed exploring their world with us.
I did.
Tell us in the comments what your favorite Ghibli film is and why it means so much to you. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. Keep those creative sparks flying, everyone.
I will.
Bye for now.
See you next time.